The topic that I picked was the genocide in Bosnia. So it started in 1992, and that was I'm gonna mispronounce a lot of these names, I think. But so in 1992, Bosnia Herzegovina declared its independence from Yugoslavia. So before they declared independence, they were a republic of them. And in 1992, Bosnia had a population of about 4 million people, and it was made up of about three um, main ethnic groups. The first one was called Bosniak, which was Bosnian Muslim. So they made up 44% of the new independent nation. Serbs made up 33%, and then Croat made up, or Croat, I'm not sure, they made up 13%. So pretty much what ended up happening was that the Serb population, they weren't happy that the new independent nation would be mainly Bosniak, which again was like 44% of the population at the time, or almost half. So the Serbs launched a military campaign in May of 1992 to pretty much like cleanse. They wanted to cleanse Bosnia of its mainly Muslim population, and they also had support from the Yugoslavian army because a lot of them were Serbs. So I think what happened was they had the same feelings as the other population and supported the same cause. So they pretty much worked together to get rid of the Bosniak population. So the first thing that happened, that army they attacked and bombarded the capital city called Sarajevo, and then they attacked them first, and then they pretty much just started attacking all the other cities that had a large Bosniak population, and I think that was pretty much it was a lot of them because they were the main population. So they forcibly removed those citizens in the process also. And one of the sources I researched this about, they said this was classified as an ethnic cleansing um, because the Bosniak populations were pretty much just expelled from the areas. They were just told to go somewhere else, and I mean, a lot of them were killed too. So I think it was both. But by the end of 1993, the Serb forces they controlled about 3/4 of the country. So they controlled all of that, and then the United Nations they declared a few cities like safe zones for the Bosniaks. One of them was Srebrenica, and then Zepa. They declared those two as safe zones for the Bosniaks, and the Bosniaks they tried to make like peace proposals with the Serbs, but they all failed. So they didn't really get any help with that. And the United Nations they didn't actually like join the conflict by fighting at this point, but they were providing like humanitarian aid to all of the victims. So by 1995, there were three main towns or areas that were not yet taken over, and they included the two I just talked about, the Srebrenica and Zepa, and then there was another one that was called Gorazdi. But and then continuing the timeline, kind of on July 2nd, the one city called Srebrenica started to get, and that was like the safe zone. Um, as called by the United Nations. But they started to get bombed, and then the forces advanced on the city and pretty much took it over right away. They took United Nations soldiers as prisoners, and some soldiers ended up retreating. So they pretty much took over the city, and that happened on from July 2nd to July 11th is when that happened to of 1995. And then I found a few sources, and they all kind of said different things at this point, but I'll follow one of them, which was Britannica, and they said that. So they said the same thing I just said. On July 11th, all the forces came into the city, um, but on that night there was about 10,000 Bosniak men who tried to flee the city by trying to get through a dense forest nearby, and then the next morning, the forces that took the city, they used the United Nations equipment to kind of get them to like radios and stuff to get them to surrender. And a lot of them gave themselves up and ended up coming back to the city. And they ended up getting captured, executed, and then the rest of them they forced out of the area. So the women, children, and other adults, or older adults, sorry, that were still in the city were put on buses and they were taken to Bosniak territory, but they kept all the men and boys that they had captured, and they were taken to holding sites, and eventually they were taken to execution sites. So that all happened on July 13th and July 13th. The executions and moving them to the execution site, they continued until July 16th. And by the end of that, they estimate that 8,000 people were killed. And that was just during those events. Throughout the whole, from 1992 to 1995, they estimate that the number of deaths was around 100,000. So it was quite a lot. And then in August of the same year, the United Nations um, they started they joined the conflict. They started fighting back. They bombed the Serb forces after they refused to comply, and they ended up pretty much defeating the Serb forces. Um, and they were kind of forced to begin peace talks, which happened in November, and that led up to a peace agreement being signed. So after that, they had trials for the genocide against the Bosniaks, and the last trial that I saw it ended in 2017. So pretty much 20 years of trials went on after that, and then kind of yeah, like I said before, an estimated 100,000 people died, and they think that like around 2 million people were displaced and they fled to other European countries, and a lot of them never returned. So I think that was everything.